Close your eyes and picture a clock. Not a digital display blinking with numbers. A heavy mechanical wall clock, grinding through the darkness with a dull, relentless tick. Every beat is a missile leaving its launch tube. Every echo another factory floor going quiet. It's May 2026. In a few weeks, the United States will celebrate its 220th birthday. Stages are going up across the country, fireworks are stacked in warehouses, and out of the White House comes rhetoric louder than anything we've heard in decades. Promises of a second American century, threats of epic fury against anyone who gets in the way. But here's what they're not telling you. Step away from the podiums. Go down into the climate-controlled bunkers beneath the Pentagon, and you'll find a completely different kind of counting going on. Because there's an enormous gap between the image of power and the reality of it. While the president brags about strength on social media, the so-called arsenal of democracy is having an industrial heart attack. The numbers don't add up anymore. Stockpiles are running dry, the skilled machinists retired years ago and were never replaced, and the strongman is quietly looking for an exit, before the birthday party has even started. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Geopolitics is usually sold to us as a grand strategic chessboard. By 2026, it's become a game of inventory management. In the first 2 months of the Iran conflict alone, the United States burned through more than 1,000 Tomahawk cruise missiles. To anyone watching the evening news, it looked clean, high-tech, dominant, almost bloodless. Silicon Valley War. But here's what's actually keeping generals up at night. The entire global stockpile of Tomahawks has dropped to roughly 2,100 missiles. Think about that for a second. In just a few weeks of fighting, the US burned through nearly a third of everything it had. Military planners have a name for this scenario. They call it the Winchester problem, named after the radio call that means your magazine is empty and you're still in the fight. If the remaining reserves get poured into Iran's mountains, the US risks leaving a massive strategic hole in the Pacific. Deterrence doesn't just weaken, it collapses entirely. And it doesn't stop there. To shoot down crude Iranian drones costing $50,000 apiece, the US has been firing interceptor missiles that cost $2 million each. Interceptors are being used up 2.5 times faster than they can be built. So why did we end up here? Because 30 years of just-in-time supply chain logic has finally hit a wall. We convinced ourselves that software and finance mattered more than steel and welding. But you can't download a solid rocket motor. You can't order precision guidance fins from an app. These things have to be made, in real factories by real people with real skills. And those people, those factories, that institutional knowledge? A lot of it is gone. What's left is a kind of industrial amnesia about how to build the very things the country needs to defend itself. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this breakdown in hardware directly shapes how the people in charge behave. Put simply, when things get real, this administration flinches. That sounds like a strong claim. But look at the pattern. This is a deeply transactional White House. The inner circle, real estate developers, deal makers, people who see everything as a negotiating position, plays tough when the other side can't hit back. The strongman act works fine against weak targets. Iran isn't a real estate deal. Iran has strategic depth, mountain ranges, and a culture that genuinely doesn't share our assumptions about what a fair outcome looks like. The moment the president realizes there's no quick win, no clean footage for campaign ads, his instincts snap back to their most basic setting. Get out. He stops looking for ways to win and starts looking for a backdoor. This is the cycle. He sets a fire to capture that brief premium of looking tough. Then when the flames start eating into his own margins, he pivots. Suddenly the people he was threatening are great people, and he's working the phones for a deal. Any deal. It's not strategy. It's a real estate developer's survival instinct wearing a diplomat's suit. And layered on top of all of this is a deadline that's closing in fast. July 4, 2026. For this administration, that date isn't a holiday. It's a political trap. The president has framed the 250th anniversary as his personal coronation, proof that he made America great again. The one thing he absolutely cannot afford is waking up on the morning of July 4th to footage of a burning U.S. carrier in the Persian Gulf. Tehran knows this. Beijing knows it too. Throughout May and June, Washington has been stuck. The arsenal can't sustain a serious air campaign, and public opinion makes any ground invasion a political death sentence. What's left of American toughness is little more than occasional shock and awe, interrupted by ammunition shortages and second thoughts. So we get this strange, almost schizophrenic diplomacy. One day, threats to wipe enemies off the map. The next, weirdly effusive praise, almost pleading, for a half-finished agreement, just to get home in time for the ribbon cutting. It's like a poker player who's shoved all his chips into the middle of the table and just realized the other guy isn't bluffing. But while the politicians run out the clock, I want to talk about who's actually paying for all of this. Because this isn't just about ammunition. It's about whether the global system holds together. The deadlock has kept oil prices pinned at multi-year highs. But the quieter catastrophe, the one you're not seeing on the news, is fertilizer. Iran is a critical node in the global nitrogen fertilizer supply chain, and its exports have been strangled. Fertilizer prices worldwide have jumped more than 300%. You won't see this on the ticker under missile strike footage, but it may ultimately prove more lethal than the missiles themselves. Estimates suggest as many as 45 million people in developing nations could fall into severe food insecurity because of this diplomatic limbo. That's the real cost of a strongman who can't afford the image he's selling. A superpower stalling for time while children in the global south pay for it with their lives. And finally, I want to point out the strangest twist in this whole story, one that almost nobody is talking about. Over the past few weeks, the White House has done a complete moral about-face. The president who spent years attacking allies is suddenly praising them as great defenders of freedom. Leaders like Zelensky are being held up as moral cover for strategic failure. And most remarkably, the administration has been making almost embarrassingly deferential overtures toward Beijing. Why? Because he knows the US can no longer control how this ends. He needs someone to put out the fire he started. He's looking for a mediator, anyone who can help him declare peace before the fireworks go off on the 4th. It's a liquidation sale of American strategic credibility, dressed up as diplomacy. So when the cannons fire on July 4th, I want you to try something. Look past the smoke. Don't watch the flags. Watch the logic underneath them. What we're witnessing in 2026 isn't the rebirth of an empire. It's a system hitting its physical and moral limits, shaking, overcorrecting, trying to drown out the sound of exhaustion with louder and louder speakers. A superpower projecting strength from a warehouse that's been running on empty for years. The strongman didn't lead us into a new era. He's just running out the clock before the next commercial break. The real question was never whether America is great again. The real question is, what happens on July 5th? When the fireworks fade, the guests go home, and the display window advertising a quick, clean victory is still empty. What's left? We'll be face to face with what the spectacle has been hiding all along. A deterrence architecture that looks enormous from the outside, but has quietly exhausted its margin for error from within.